Tonight, under the quiet sweep of stars, we embark on a journey into the dreams of ancient times. Imagine the world long ago, before the hum of electricity and the glow of city lights, when night truly meant darkness, and the sky was a river of stars from horizon to horizon. In those times, our ancestors lay beneath that glittering canopy with minds full of wonder. They dreamed as we dream in images and mysteries. But unlike us, they had no scientific explanations or modern distractions to dull the significance of those nocturnal visions. In the deep silence after dusk, a dream's voice could sound as clear as a bell. For them, dreams were more than stray night visions, they were imbued with meaning. Perhaps it was a god's whisper, a message from a departed soul, or the secret reflections of one's own spirit. Many an ancient soul awakened in the blue pre-dawn light, heart pounding from a dream, and pondered what hidden truth or warning might have been bestowed. Our exploration this evening delves into how those distant peoples interpreted this nightly gift of images. This calm journey will carry us gently through old worlds, moving slowly and softly. We will travel from the mud brick courts of Mesopotamia to the grand temples of Egypt, from the forests of India to the courts of China, and onward to the classical lands of Greece and Rome, listening to how people of ancient times understood the dreams that visited them in their sleep. It will be a reflective voyage, an opportunity to walk quietly beside the dreamers of long ago and hear the echoes of their interpretations. Gently, we begin, as though stepping into a dimly lit hall of history where each culture's dreams glimmer like stars overhead. It is night in Mesopotamia, over 4,000 years ago. The city lies quiet under a sky of brilliant stars. In a palace built of mud brick and lamplight, a great king has awakened from a troubling dream. The air is warm and the distant sound of the Euphrates River can be heard in the stillness. The smell of heated brick and a trace of incense from a temple altar linger in the breeze, mixing with the sweetness of blooming date flowers in the palace garden. The king's heart beats heavily as he recalls the images that visited him in sleep, perhaps a roaring lion with a human face, or a river turning to blood. Unsure of its meaning, he summons his trusted wise men in the hush before dawn. Soon, a small gathering of priests and scribes stands before the throne, their shadows flickering on the walls. A venerable dream interpreter steps forward. He carries clay tablets etched with cuneiform writing, ancient records of dreams and their meanings. By the glow of an oil lamp, the interpreter listens as the king, voice hushed and low, describes every detail of his dream. In this quiet exchange, there is no skepticism, no dismissal of the dream as mere fancy. In the worldview of ancient Mesopotamia, a dream is a message. It may come from the gods who watch over the kingdom or from spirits that wander in the night, and so each detail is treated with respect, each symbol pondered. As the lamplight dances on his lined face, the interpreter's eyes gleam with knowledge passed down from his forefathers. The interpreter closes his eyes for a moment, recalling the teachings of those who came before. Mesopotamia, one of the earliest civilizations, has long kept manuals of oneiromancy, the art of dream interpretation. On clay tablets stored in temple libraries, wise men noted hundreds of dreams and what they portended. The interpreter might have learned from the writings of old that if a man dreams of a lion, it means there is a mighty enemy. Or if one dreams of a river flowing backwards, it is a warning of upheaval. These interpretations, set down in careful script, guide him now. Opening his eyes, the old interpreter begins to speak softly. He reminds the king that even in legendary times, great rulers recorded their dreams. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest stories, tells of the great king Gilgamesh who had remarkable dreams. It describes how one night Gilgamesh saw a star fall from the sky, a meteor so heavy that he could not lift it. Crowds gathered in his dream to marvel at the fallen star. In another dream, soon after, he found a mighty axe lying in the street. When he tried to move it, it was so large that he could barely budge it, yet he felt drawn to it as if it were a loved one. Troubled by these mysterious images, Gilgamesh turned to his mother, the wise goddess queen Ninsun, for interpretation. In the still dawn, Ninsun explained to her son that these dreams meant a powerful companion would soon appear, someone strong as a meteor from heaven and as dear to him as that axe. She foretold that this friend would stand by Gilgamesh's side. True enough, not long after, the wild man Enkidu came into Gilgamesh's life, and they formed a bond as strong as brothers. Thus, the dreams had announced the coming of Enkidu, offering comfort that Gilgamesh would gain an equal companion. The ancients who heard this story understood its lesson. Pay attention to dreams, for they may prepare you for joy or sorrow ahead. Throughout the epic, dreams guide the protagonists. When Gilgamesh and Enkidu undertake a dangerous quest, the night before battle, they both dream of mountains collapsing and a fearsome bull from the sky, ominous warnings of the peril to come. Although they proceed, those dreams prepare them for the heavy price destiny will demand. Mesopotamians took such cautionary dreams to heart, believing that to be forewarned by the gods was to be given a chance, however small, to respond appropriately. Mesopotamians, in reality, like their heroes in myth, took their dreams seriously, and not just kings. In humble clay tablets found by modern archaeologists, tablets that once sat in libraries like that of Nineveh, we find lists of dream omens for all manner of people. A record from Mehi, ancient Assyria, written in neat lines of cuneiform, offers glimpses into that world of dream interpretation. For example, it says calmly, "If you kindle a fire in your dream, sorrow will come to you." Another line reads, "If you travel to the city of Lagash in your dream, you will be robbed." Each scenario is written as a conditional. If this dream occurs, then that result follows. Sometimes the interpretations were hopeful. One old tablet muses, "If a man dreams he is eating ripe dates, joy will find him." Other times they were warnings. If you see a well overflow in a dream, it means a great change is coming. To our ears today, some of these pronouncements may sound like superstition, but to an ancient Mesopotamian, these were distilled insights from centuries of observation. They believed patterns could be found that the gods, in their wisdom, gave hints of the future through the language of dreams. In one corner of the palace library, a collection of tablets forms a great compendium known to us as the Assyrian Dream Book. This compilation organized dreams in a systematic way, spanning many tablets filled with countless scenarios like a catalog of the subconscious. The scribes even used wordplay at times to decode meaning. One entry notes that if a man dreams of a raven, Arbu in Akkadian, it is a good omen that he will have income. Irbu, a pun. In another, dreaming of consuming human flesh sounds horrifying, but they interpreted it as a positive sign that one would gain great riches, a pun between sheru, flesh, and sharu, wealth. Even nightmares could hide a twist of wordplay that turned them into something favorable. The dream interpreters made extensive use of such puns to explain the symbolism of the dream world. While many dreams were considered messages from deities, the Mesopotamians also understood that some dreams reflected the dreamer's own state of mind or body. They divided dreams into categories: message dreams, clear communications from a god or spirit; reflection dreams, arising from the dreamer's inner worries or health; and mantic dreams, prophetic visions of the future. Thus, a nightmare could either be a divine warning or simply the product of a guilty conscience or an upset stomach, and the skilled interpreter's job was to discern which was which. If the king's dream seems to be a true message from the gods, the interpreter might advise a ritual. In Mesopotamia, a bad dream was not something to ignore. It was a call to action. The interpreter priests had in their repertoire incantations and offerings meant to avert the negative outcome of a dream. For instance, if a dream warned of plague or misfortune, the king could perform a dawn sacrifice to appease the angry deity and turn aside the danger. On the other hand, if the dream promised success or a divine blessing, the king would be counseled to quietly honor the gods in gratitude, but not to become overconfident. Within the palace walls, the oil lamp flickers as the interpreter finishes his explanation. The king feels a weight lift from his chest, even if the omen he learned is serious. At least now he knows what the dream is believed to mean. In the ancient world, knowledge of an omen is a measure of control, much as knowing a coming storm lets one prepare shelter. The king nods and thanks his wise counselor. Plans will be set in motion at once, whether it is to reinforce the city's defenses or to hold a ceremony of supplication. A dream's message, once understood, never goes unheeded here. Beyond the palace, the common people of Mesopotamia also sought meaning in their dreams. We might imagine a merchant in Babylon who dreams of his storage jars overflowing with grain and wakes, hopeful that it signifies a season of plenty for his business. Or a mother who dreams her child is wandering, lost in a far-off field. She might hold her little one extra close the next day, fearing the dream, an omen of danger. The clay tablets of private letters even reveal ordinary individuals reporting dreams to their king. In one letter from the city of Mari, a woman writes that the god Dagon appeared to her in a dream with a message for the ruler. King Zimri-Lim of Mari took such reports seriously, treating them as potential divine counsel. It was accepted that sometimes the gods chose a humble sleeper as the vessel for an important warning, especially if the king himself was not listening by other means. In later Mesopotamian history, we find accounts of dreams guiding kings in moments of crisis. The Assyrian king Ashurbanipal in the 7th century BC reportedly had a critical dream on the eve of battle. As the story goes, Ashurbanipal prayed by night to Ishtar, goddess of war, for aid against his powerful enemies. That night he dreamed the goddess appeared in radiant armor, embracing him. In the dream, Ishtar handed the king a gleaming bow and sword and promised, "I shall march with you." Ashurbanipal awoke heartened by this vision. He took it as a sign that Ishtar was on his side. The next day, he led his troops into battle with renewed confidence, and he prevailed. He later credited the dream, Ishtar's nocturnal visit, for his victory and offered rich sacrifices in thanks. So strong was his belief that the goddess had spoken to him in sleep, guiding the fate of his empire. Around the same era, according to biblical tradition, another great monarch in Mesopotamia was deeply troubled by a dream. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, dreamed of a colossal statue with a head of gold, chest of silver, belly of bronze, and legs of iron, but its feet were made of iron mixed with brittle clay. In the dream, a stone not cut by human hands came hurtling from the sky and smashed the statue's feet, toppling the mighty figure and shattering it to dust. Nebuchadnezzar awoke in a sweat. Sensing the dream was profound, he demanded an interpretation from his court sages, but in a cruel twist, he insisted they first tell him what he had dreamed to prove their skill or face death. None could until a young Jewish captive named Daniel prayed for divine help. In a quiet chamber that night, Daniel received a vision revealing the king's dream and its meaning. Brought before Nebuchadnezzar at dawn, Daniel recounted the dream accurately, astonishing everyone, and then calmly explained it. "Your Majesty, the golden head is you and your empire of Babylon. After you will come a kingdom of silver, then a kingdom of bronze, and a kingdom of iron. Finally, a divided kingdom, partly strong like iron, yet partly fragile like clay, will arise. The stone from heaven represents the eternal kingdom of heaven, which will in time sweep away all earthly kingdoms." Nebuchadnezzar, a man not easily awed, fell silent and honored Daniel's God for revealing this secret. The king elevated Daniel to high office, and for generations the story was told of how a single powerful dream foretold the rise and fall of empires. Such accounts, one from Assyrian record and one from Hebrew scripture, both attest to an enduring belief across Mesopotamia. The highest powers of the universe, be they Ishtar or the God of Daniel, spoke through dreams to guide the course of history. Not all significant dreams in the Near East were reserved for rulers alone. Some were deeply personal and transformative. In one gentle tale from the Bible, the patriarch Jacob, wandering alone in the desert, fell asleep with a stone for his pillow. He dreamed of a ladder stretching from earth to heaven, upon which angels were ascending and descending. And in that dream, Jacob heard the voice of the divine, promising to watch over him and his descendants. When he awoke, the night still surrounding him, Jacob was awestruck and comforted. "Surely God is in this place," he murmured, and he named that lonely spot Bethel, house of God. The simple vision of a ladder of light had convinced him that even in his solitude, he was not alone. A benevolent presence was with him, guiding his path. Another beloved biblical account speaks of young King Solomon. Early in his reign, Solomon prayed earnestly for guidance. One night at Gibeon, he dreamed that God appeared to him, saying, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." In his dream, Solomon humbly asked, not for riches or long life, but for wisdom to govern his people justly. In the dream, the divine figure granted this request and also promised him honor and prosperity besides. Solomon awoke and found that his heart was full of extraordinary wisdom. As the stories say, he became the wisest of men. His dream was understood as the channel through which divine blessing and insight were bestowed. Generations have treasured this story as an example of a wish fulfilled through a dream, a quiet dialogue between a king and his God that shaped a nation's future. Incidentally, Joseph, the very same who interpreted Pharaoh's dream, had been guided by prophetic dreams long before he stood in the Egyptian court. As a youth in Canaan, Joseph himself dreamed that he and his 11 brothers were binding sheaves of wheat in the field, when suddenly his brothers' sheaves gathered around and bowed to his sheaf. In another dream, he saw the sun, the moon, and 11 stars all bowing to him. These mysterious visions infuriated his older brothers, who interpreted them to mean Joseph would rule over them. It was one reason the Bible says that they grew jealous and sold him into slavery. Yet years later in Egypt, those dreams came true in their own way. Joseph's 11 brothers did bow before him, not realizing who he was when they came pleading for grain during the famine. Joseph, by then Pharaoh's governor, recognized the fulfillment of his boyhood dreams. Thus, Joseph's life from start to finish was entwined with the power of dreams. Impressed by Joseph's God-given wisdom in interpreting the Pharaoh's dream of the cows, the Pharaoh had raised Joseph from prisoner to royal vizier on the spot. Following Joseph's plan, they stored grain during the 7 plentiful years to prepare for the 7 lean ones to come, and Egypt was saved from starvation. A quiet dream, whispered to a pharaoh in his sleep, altered the course of many lives by prompting wise preparation. Before the day breaks completely in Mesopotamia, let us gently take our leave of that land of 2 rivers. The eastern horizon is already turning pale, and the city's mud brick walls begin to glow with dawn's first light. A final offering of thanks is made to the gods for the guidance sent in dreams. With that, we slip away. Our journey carries us westward now, following the dimming constellations across sand dunes and fertile valleys until we arrive at the banks of another great river, the Nile. Here, in ancient Egypt, a different civilization under the same stars found its own ways to listen to the voices of dreams. Far to the west of Mesopotamia, along the banks of the Nile River, another ancient culture also sought meaning in dreams. The night in Egypt is cool and silent, with only the creaking of date palms in the warm breeze, a chorus of frogs chirping along the riverbanks, and the gentle lapping of river water against its banks. Under a canopy of stars, an Egyptian scribe sits cross-legged in a pool of amber lamplight. Before him lies a rolled piece of papyrus covered in neat hieroglyphic script. This fragile document is a dream manual, a guide written to interpret the visions that come in sleep. In ancient Egypt, as in Mesopotamia, dreams were considered communications from the divine. But the Egyptians, meticulous record keepers, went so far as to create a formal dream book. Our scribe carefully unrolls the papyrus, revealing line after line that all begin the same way. If a man sees himself in a dream. Each horizontal line then describes a scenario and its interpretation. By tradition, the list begins with favorable dreams. For example, by the warm glow of his lamp. The scribe reads, "If a man sees himself in a dream looking out through a window, good, it means the hearing of joyful news." In Egyptian thought, to look out a window in a dream promised that one's cries or prayers would be heard and answered. He scrolls further down. After the section of good dreams, the papyrus turns to those of ill omen. These lines the scribe has penned in red ink, the color of warning and ill fortune in Egypt. He whispers one entry to himself. If a man sees himself in a dream with his bed catching fire bad, it means that he will drive away his wife. The scribe pauses, picturing the scene. A bed ablaze, symbolizing domestic strife. The interpretation is terse, almost matter-of-fact. Egyptian dream interpreters did not embellish, they noted the sign and its meaning as established by tradition. This dream book that our scribe handles was copied and passed down over generations. It contains around 200 entries, a catalog of the night's many visions. Should an Egyptian dreamer see himself dead and then alive again in a dream, the papyrus reassures, it means a long life ahead. If he dreams of walking steadily on a road, it foretells that he will attain his goals. If he dreams of drinking warm beer, alas, a bad omen, it might mean suffering will come, for warmth has spoiled a drink that ought to be cool and refreshing. The interpretations sometimes seem mysterious, but each was grounded in symbolic association or cultural lore. In fact, the very papyrus we are envisioning truly existed and was rediscovered thousands of years later. It had been carefully kept in the village of Deir el-Medina, the community of artisans who built the pharaoh's royal tombs. Generations of a scribe's family preserved this scroll, even adding their names to it as owners, before it was finally placed in a tomb for safekeeping. This legacy suggests that ordinary scribes and craftsmen, not only palace priests, found value in understanding dreams. It's a glimpse of how widespread the fascination with dream meanings was in Egypt. Beyond the written manuals, Egyptians also relied on skilled dream interpreters, often priests or wise men trained in temples. In our mind's eye, we can shift from the scribe's chamber to the grand court of Pharaoh himself. Envision a pharaoh of the new kingdom, clad in crisp linen and gold jewelry, awakened from an unsettling dream. Perhaps he dreamt of 7 fat cows emerging from the Nile, followed by 7 gaunt, starving cows that devoured the fat ones. Disturbed and perplexed, the pharaoh calls upon his magicians and seers at dawn. In the vast pillared hall, incense curls in thin wisps as these wise men bow and listen. They understand that such a dream surely carries a message from the gods, maybe from Ra, the sun god, or Osiris, lord of the underworld, but none among them can decipher its meaning. History and legend give us a story of just this moment. In the Egyptian tale recorded in the Hebrew Bible, Pharaoh's dream of the 7 cows confounded his court until a prisoner named Joseph was brought forward. Joseph, a foreigner in Egypt but gifted in interpretation, listened calmly as Pharaoh recounted the vivid imagery. In the silence that followed, Joseph explained that the dream was a divine warning. The 7 fat cows were 7 years of plentiful harvests, and the 7 thin cows were 7 years of famine that would follow, consuming all the abundance. The Pharaoh believed this interpretation, for it rang true to his heart and to the subtle dread the dream had left in him. Impressed by Joseph's God-given wisdom, the Pharaoh raised him from prisoner to royal vizier on the spot. Joseph was given charge to act on the dream's message. They stored grain during the 7 rich years to prepare for the 7 lean years to come, and in doing so, Egypt was saved from starvation. This gentle but powerful tale shows how deeply the ancients trusted dreams to guide even the fate of nations. Egyptian culture is indeed rich with such reverence for dreams. They felt that the gods often spoke through this veiled symbolic language rather than directly. At times, temples themselves encouraged dream communication. In certain healing shrines, a devotee seeking guidance might sleep overnight in the holy precinct, hoping that the god or goddess of that temple would appear in a dream with a cure or an answer. Imagine a sick man journeying to the temple of Imhotep or Isis, lying down on a mat in a dark chamber fragrant with myrrh. As he drifts into slumber with a prayer on his lips, he believes that Thoth, the god of wisdom, or perhaps Sekhmet, the fierce goddess who both brings and banishes disease, may send him a vision of the cure he seeks. Perhaps in his dream a brilliant blue lotus flower appears, and he takes it as a sign to brew a certain healing herb. Upon waking at dawn, when the painted columns of the temple emerge from shadow in the first light, he feels comforted, convinced the gods have given him counsel in the night. Egyptians also believed that dreams could be a meeting ground between the living and the dead. In the silence of night, a grieving wife might see her departed husband approach her in a dream, speaking softly. She would tell a priest the next day, convinced that her husband's Ka, his spirit essence, had returned with a message, or simply to visit. Far from dismissing such an experience as only imagination, the priest might advise her to make offerings at the husband's tomb to honor his appearance. In fact, some poignant letters survive that ancient Egyptians wrote to their deceased loved ones, pleading, "Why do you come to me in nightmares? What have I neglected?" They saw unsettling dreams of a dead relative as a sign that the spirit was restless or displeased. The remedy was often to pour cool water on the grave or leave food and flowers, a way of soothing the spirit so it would bring peaceful dreams instead of frightening ones. Let us imagine standing in one of Egypt's painted tomb chapels at dusk. The walls are decorated with stars and protective deities to guard the dead in their eternal sleep. An elderly priest carries a small oil lamp, its flame fluttering as he intones a prayer to Hathor, goddess of the night sky. Part of his prayer might beseech the goddess to grant the tomb's resident pleasant dreams in the afterlife. The Egyptians, with their intricate conception of the afterworld, believed that just as people dream in life, their souls might also experience dreamlike visions in the realm beyond death. The boundaries between dreaming and waking, between life and afterlife, were delicate and permeable in their worldview. Back among the living, Egyptian dream interpreters sometimes had to help people dispel nightmares. The same dream book papyrus that lists dreams and meanings also contains a short spell at the end. It advises that if one has a terrifying dream, perhaps of being attacked by a crocodile or overtaken by a sudden darkness, the dreamer should recite certain words upon waking to prevent the ill omen from taking hold. One incantation from the Ramesside period goes like this, chanted in a soothing monotone: "O bad dream that visits in darkness, be gone from me. Turn back upon the desert winds, harm me not." The person would say this while sprinkling a pinch of salt or sand around their sleeping mat, a symbolic barrier against negative forces. The act is simple and gentle, meant as much to comfort the mind as to ward off any malevolent influence. The dreamer, having performed the ritual, could then begin the day with a lighter heart. Egyptians also sought tangible ways to guard their sleep from harm. Many households placed images of the household god Bes, a cheerful yet ferocious dwarf deity, among their personal shrine items in the bedroom. With his lion-like face and tongue sticking out comically, Bes was thought to scare away any lurking demons of the night. Parents would tuck Bes amulets under children's pillows or hang them on the wall, trusting that this friendly guardian would keep nightmares at bay. Thanks to such protections, a family could close their eyes at night with a sense of security, believing that only good dreams would find their way through the door. Egypt also offers a famous example of a royal dream that changed history. Around 1400 BCE, a young prince named Thutmose fell asleep in the midday heat at the foot of the Great Sphinx, which in those days lay half buried in sand. As the story is told on a stela between the Sphinx's paws, the dream stela, the prince dreamed that the mighty sun god appearing as the Sphinx itself spoke to him. In the dream, the Sphinx was suffocating under the wind-blown sands and promised Thutmose that if he cleared the sand and restored the monument, he would become pharaoh. Awaking with the sun in his eyes and the colossal stone face gazing down at him, Thutmose took the dream as divine prophecy. He ordered the sand cleared, and indeed, not long after, he ascended to the throne as Thutmose IV. To commemorate this guidance from the dream world, he erected that inscribed stela telling the tale. In the hush of the desert, one can almost imagine young Thutmose standing in awe, the resonance of the god's voice still echoing in his mind as he brushes sand from his arms. Such stories were told in a calm, reverential tone as lessons of piety and destiny. To people hearing of Thutmose's vision, it was a reminder that the gods watch over those who listen. If one's heart is open, even a dream at noon in the shade of a monument can carry the voice of a deity. As we drift through the Egyptian night, we might also encounter a professional dream interpreter in a bustling marketplace. Perhaps a troubled farmer approaches this wise man, saying he dreamed of the Nile running dry. The interpreter, after a moment's thought, might respond softly that this dream is a prompt. The dreamer must be careful with resources, because lean times could be ahead. He might advise the farmer to store grain and to thank the gods for the warning. The exchange is not alarmist, just practical and respectful of the message believed to be given from beyond. The attitude in ancient Egypt toward dreams was essentially this: pay attention, seek guidance, and take prudent action if needed. They did not view every dream as prophetic. If a dream was nonsensical or clearly a jumbled replay of the day's events, they often dismissed it as only a dream. In fact, one rule advised that an incomplete or confusing dream should not be interpreted at all. Only those dreams with a clear narrative or striking symbols were seen as significant enough to decode. This kept people from becoming overly anxious about every stray image conjured by sleep. We leave Egypt with the image of that devoted scribe carefully rolling up his dream papyrus and tying it with a thread of flax. He tucks it into a clay jar to protect it from moisture and mice, preserving the collective wisdom of generations. The desert night outside is vast and sprinkled with constellations the Egyptians knew well: Orion, whom they saw as Osiris, and Sirius, the star of Isis. Perhaps as the scribe blows out his lamp and lies down to sleep, he murmurs a quick prayer to those stars above to send only good dreams. If a god has a message for him, he hopes it will come gently and clearly. And if the night passes quietly with only ordinary dreams, he will wake grateful simply for the rest. The last hours of the Egyptian night are peaceful and still, with the Nile flowing silently under the stars as it has for ages. In that tranquility, all dreams divine or mundane dissolve softly into the coming day. Now, having listened to the murmurs of Egyptian dreams, we drift onward in space and time. The ancient world is broad, and the interpretations of dreams take on different hues in different cultures. From the dry sands of Egypt, let us traverse eastward across mountains and deserts, to the lush plains and deep philosophies of early India, where another understanding of dreams awaits. The journey brings us to ancient India, where night falls over dense forests and quiet villages near the sacred Ganges River. In a clearing under a great banyan tree, a small fire crackles. An elderly sage sits in meditation as crickets sing in the grass. Nearby, his young disciple cannot sleep. He has been stirred by a vivid dream and now seeks the wisdom of his teacher to understand it. The air is warm and sweet with the scent of night-blooming jasmine as the disciple approaches respectfully. Fireflies flicker among the trees like tiny sparks, and from a nearby river comes the faint murmur of water over stones. In a gentle voice, barely above a whisper, the disciple describes his dream. He saw a mighty elephant, radiant white, carrying a lotus flower in its trunk. The elephant trumpeted and then gently touched his forehead with the lotus. The sage listens with eyes closed, nodding slowly. In ancient India, dreams are often seen as messages from the divine or as omens of future events, but they can also carry deep spiritual symbolism. The sage's face is calm, illuminated by the soft glow of the embers as he begins to interpret the dream. He tells the young man that the elephant in Indian tradition is a sacred animal associated with majesty and wisdom. A white elephant, in particular, is a rare and auspicious sign. The lotus it carried represents purity and enlightenment, blooming unstained even from muddy waters. To dream of such an elephant offering a lotus to one's forehead is exceedingly positive, perhaps a blessing from the gods. The sage suggests the disciple may receive special knowledge or that good fortune is on the horizon. This exact dream motif, the sage notes softly, echoes an ancient story. It is said that Queen Maya, the mother of Gautama Buddha, dreamt of a magnificent white elephant presenting her with a lotus. Wise Brahmin interpreters at the time explained that this meant she would bear a son, destined to become a great spiritual leader. Indeed, that dream heralded the birth of the Buddha. The disciple's eyes widen to hear that his own night vision carries a resonance with this celebrated myth. He feels awed and comforted, as though some gentle power has touched his life during sleep. In the nearby village, others too reflect on their dreams at early dawn. A farmer wakes from a dream of a bountiful harvest golden grain piled high under a clear sky, and takes it as a hopeful sign that the coming season will be good. Across the dusty road, a young woman soon to be married dreams of heavy rain soaking her bridal clothes. She worries this might be an ill omen, perhaps tears or troubles to come, and decides to visit the local temple to pray for protection. In ancient India, as in other lands, people did not simply shrug off such dreams. They discussed them with family or a local wise person, trying to glean whether some action was needed or some offering should be made. Ancient Indian texts preserve systematic approaches to dream interpretation. The Vedas and Puranas, India's sacred lore and mythology, contain passages about dreams. One Sanskrit treatise categorically divides dreams into good omens, shubha, and bad omens, ashubha. A verse calmly advises that a dream of climbing a tree or a mountain means you will rise in life. A dream of falling from a high ledge warns of coming loss or decline. Dreaming of cows, elephants, or horses, especially of riding them, is said to herald wealth or victory. These gentle beasts signify prosperity and power under control. Conversely, to see oneself wearing torn clothes or with disheveled hair in a dream is considered unlucky, perhaps indicating illness or misfortune, as it shows the self in a state of disorder. By the soft light of dawn, an astrologer in a small town might open a palm leaf manuscript where such dream omens are listed. With a tranquil demeanor, he explains to a worried father that the snake the man saw coiled around his home in a dream could actually be a positive sign the serpent is sacred and could mean the family will be protected by a divine force. for in India, the snake often represents a guardian deity. However, if someone dreams of their teeth falling out, the astrologer gently warns it could indicate a forthcoming death or departure in the family, a belief shared in many cultures. To ward off any potential harm, the astrologer advises the father to recite a particular mantra at sunrise and make an offering of milk to Lord Shiva, asking for the family's well-being. These actions are soothing rituals, giving the dreamer a sense of agency and hope that any ill fate might be averted by divine grace. In the great epics of India, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana dreams play their part as well. Before a great battle, a warrior might dream of a goddess weeping, signaling the bloodshed to come, or a queen may dream of celestial beings presenting her with a garland of flowers, symbolizing that a heroic son will be born to her. These stories, told around flickering oil lamps in ancient courtyards, reinforce the idea that dreams are intertwined with destiny. They were narrated not with bombast, but with a kind of reflective wonder that even as we sleep, our fate can whisper to us. It was not only omens of external events that occupied Indian thoughts on dreams. The wise sages, rishis, pondered the very nature of dreaming itself. In the quiet of forest hermitages, philosophical discussions took place about what it means to dream. The Upanishads' mystical texts from the first millennium BCE teach that the human self lives in different states, waking, dreaming, and deep dreamless sleep, and beyond them the highest state of consciousness. In one Upanishad, a teacher guides his student through a meditation on dreams. He explains that in dreams the soul creates an inner world as real as the waking world, populated by the impressions of all one has seen or experienced. When a person dreams of wandering to far-off lands, to the soul, it is as if he truly goes there. And yet, the teacher notes softly, when the dream ends, that world dissolves. From this they draw a gentle lesson. The physical world, too, may be something of an illusion, Maya, not so different from a long dream created by the divine. Back in our scene by the banyan tree, the sage adds a similar reflection for his disciple. He says that while many dreams are indeed messages or omens, some dreams simply mirror our own thoughts and feelings. If one is anxious or full of desire by day, the mind might conjure scenes in sleep that express those emotions. These need not be seen as prophecies, but rather as a part of one's inner dialogue. True wisdom, he counsels gently, is knowing which dreams carry divine import and which are only the mind's play. He quotes a line from an old Sanskrit verse: "As a mirror reflects the face, the dream reflects the heart." The disciple takes in these words, gazing at the fading stars above, and feels a sense of peace. Even a confusing dream can be understood either as guidance from above or insight from within. Ancient Indian literature is rich with dream interpretations being used for moral teaching as well. One Buddhist text recounts how King Pasenadi of Kosala, a contemporary of the Buddha, once dreamed 16 bizarre and unsettling dreams in a single night. In one, he saw young calves trying to drink milk from their mother cows, but the cows kicked them away to drink their calves' milk instead. In another, he saw people carefully threading a colossal rope through the eye of a tiny needle, yet later struggling to pass a fine thread through a wide gate. Perplexed and frightened by these and other strange visions, the king turned to the Buddha for counsel. The Buddha calmly explained that each dream was a symbolic prophecy of societal decline in the far future, for instance. The dream of mother cows rejecting their calves signified a time to come when parents would depend on their children instead of caring for them, and the giant rope through the needle foretold people laboring hard on trivial tasks while neglecting important responsibilities. The Buddha assured Pasenadi that these events would not happen for centuries, and that the king's own realm was safer now, and could be kept virtuous through diligence. In this way, the Buddha transformed the king's ominous dreams into gentle lessons on ethics and foresight. The king, much relieved, paid homage and thanks. This episode became a beloved example of compassionate interpretation, a wise one, neuromancy, that guided people toward righteousness rather than fear. The ancient Indians also paid attention to the timing of a dream. A bit of folk wisdom passed down through generations held that a dream's significance depended on when in the night it occurred. A dream in the first hours of night, just as one falls asleep, was thought to possibly come true, but only after a long time, perhaps a year. A dream in the deep middle of the night might manifest in a few months. But a dream that comes just before dawn, the sages said, tends to reveal itself swiftly, maybe within days or weeks. Thus, a person who awoke at sunrise from a striking dream often treated it with special importance, as it was considered an urgent message. People learned to remember when in the night their dreams came. An old saying went, "The dreams of the morning are the truest." When a dream signaled misfortune, Indians had gentle remedies to nullify the ill effects. One ancient guideline was that if you experience a bad dream, you should not dwell on it in fear. Instead, upon waking, recite a prayer or mantra to your chosen deity, and then speak the dream aloud to the morning light. By describing the bad dream to the dawn, you effectively release it, preventing it from taking hold in reality. This practice is akin to a catharsis, letting the elements carry away the negativity. In some communities, people would go to a river at sunrise, cup water in their hands, and as they murmured a prayer, let the water trickle away, symbolically washing off the nightmare's residue. Another remedy mentioned in the Atharva Veda involves making offerings to appease any spirits that might have caused the bad dream. For example, placing a small offering of rice or flowers under a sacred peepal tree might be advised, with a request that any lurking negative influence accept the gift and depart, leaving the person in peace. On the other hand, if one had a very auspicious dream, say, a vision of a deity or a symbolic triumph, tradition actually cautioned not to shout it from the rooftops. A good dream was to be shared only quietly, with a very close loved one or a guru, but not to be boasted about openly. To announce a lucky omen too widely was believed to risk breaking the charm, like a butterfly's wings being ruined by a touch. So a person who dreamed of finding a treasure or being blessed by a divine figure would often wake, give thanks privately, and carry the happiness quietly in their heart, trusting that in due time the blessing would unfold without being jinxed. As the saffron glow of sunrise now touches the edge of the horizon in our Indian scene, the sage and disciple conclude their discussion. The little fire has died down to ashes. Birds are beginning their morning chorus in the treetops. The disciple bows to his teacher, feeling lighter and wiser. The dream that had puzzled him now feels like gentle guidance, and he is content to carry its meaning into his day. The sage, too, stands and stretches, remarking, with a kind smile, that life itself is a great dream of Brahman, the ultimate reality, and that perhaps we will all awaken one day to a greater truth, just as we wake from our nightly dreams. With that serene thought hanging in the fresh morning air, the sage and his disciple offer a final silent prayer of gratitude for the insight bestowed. We quietly take our leave of ancient India. As we depart, the smoke of the sage's spent fire curls into the brightening sky, carrying a whispered thank you for the guidance of the night. Ahead, beyond the snow-capped Himalayas and across vast plains, lies another ancient culture where emperors and common folk alike look to their dreams for insight. The scene shifts as we journey further east, to the land of ancient China, where yet another rich tapestry of dream interpretation awaits. Now we arrive in ancient China. The night is still and moonlit over a landscape of rolling hills and quiet wooden villages. In the capital city of a Zhou dynasty king, lantern light glows softly from the palace windows long after sunset. Inside the palace, coils of sandalwood incense burn in tall bronze censers, their sweet smoke drifting through the halls, and a water clock drips steadily to mark the passing hours. The king has gathered his court scribes and diviners, for he too has been visited by a perplexing dream. There in the throne room, built of fragrant cedar wood and adorned with silk hangings, the atmosphere remains hushed and respectful. The king relates his dream in a low voice. He saw the great pine tree in the palace courtyard struck by lightning and catching fire. Yet when the flames died out, the tree stood unharmed and even greener than before. What could this mean? The royal dream interpreters, officials appointed for just such questions, bow and consult among themselves. In this era, around 1000 BC, the Chinese already have a well-established tradition of interpreting dreams as omens. In fact, the practice goes back further to the older Shang dynasty, c. 1500 BC. On ox bones and turtle shells used for divination, the oracle bones, the questions of kings, have been found etched in ancient characters. Last night the king saw a tiger in his dream. Is this a good portent for the coming battle? A diviner would then apply heat to the bone until it cracked, and interpret the pattern of cracks to obtain a yes or no answer from the ancestors or gods. The very act of engraving a dream question on an oracle bone shows how seriously the Chinese took dreams as a form of communication with the divine realm. Such a question would not be asked unless the dream itself was deemed potentially significant. By the Zhou dynasty, dream divination has become more elaborate. The interpreters serving the king in our scene likely rely on a growing body of recorded dream lore. They consider the king's dream carefully. A tree struck by lightning yet surviving, this could be an opposite dream, fan meng, a concept in Chinese. Oniromancy, where the dream shows a frightening event, destruction by fire, but the outcome in reality will be the opposite. The tree, symbolizing the kingdom, will undergo trial, but emerge even stronger. Thus, one elder interpreter, stroking his long white beard, suggests in a calm tone that the dream portends a crisis or upheaval will befall the realm, the lightning fire. But ultimately, this threat will be overcome, and the kingdom will flourish anew, the tree greener than before. Another court scholar nods and adds that pine trees in Chinese symbolism represent endurance and longevity. The dream likely indicates the royal line will not only survive adversity, but thrive because of it. The king lets out a slow breath of relief as he listens. Far from predicting doom, the dream is telling him to remain steadfast through the coming storm. This gentle interpretation steels his resolve without causing panic. Such scenes were not uncommon in Chinese courts. The Zhou kings reportedly kept official dream interpreters, and through later dynasties, emperors often consulted specialists for their dreams as well. The outcomes of these interpretations sometimes found their way into written histories. It is recorded, for instance, that the mother of a great Han emperor dreamed of the sun rising from her womb before she conceived her son, a vivid symbol later taken to prove heaven's favor on the imperial birth. Many imperial mothers claim to dream of dragons, bright auroras, or other cosmic signs while pregnant, which court historians dutifully noted as signs that the child was destined for greatness. And it was not only mothers. One famous dream from later Chinese history is credited with bringing Buddhism to China. The story goes that Emperor Ming of Han, in the 1st century AD, dreamed of a flying golden figure radiating light. His scholars suggested this was a sage from the west. Taking this as a heavenly sign, the emperor sent envoys along the Silk Road to seek teachings in India. They returned with sacred Buddhist scriptures and monks, heralding the introduction of Buddhism to the Chinese realm, all sparked by the inspiration of a dream. Meanwhile, common people in ancient China also sought meaning in their dreams. We can imagine a rural household in the dead of night. A farmer awakens from a nightmare in which he saw his rice fields flooded and ruined. Troubled, he lights a small lamp and immediately follows a traditional remedy. He softly recites the nightmare aloud, speaking it into the darkness, then opens the cottage door and spits just outside, symbolically expelling the ill luck. In doing this, he believes he breaks the dream's threat. By voicing the bad dream and literally casting it out, he feels he has nullified its power. In the morning, he will mention the nightmare to his wife, and perhaps together they will go to the village shrine to burn incense and ask the ancestors to protect their crops. This practice of speaking a bad dream out, loud upon waking, was part of Chinese folk wisdom, the idea being that a spoken evil dream loses its sting, whereas one kept secret might fester into reality. Conversely, if that same farmer had a wondrous dream, say, of finding a hidden treasure in an old well or of a great phoenix bird flying overhead, he would be more tight-lipped. A good dream in Chinese custom was cherished quietly. He might tell only his closest family or an elder in the household. The belief was that a lucky omen should not be trumpeted loudly, lest it attract jealousy or disruptive spirits that could undo the blessing. In this way, Chinese villagers managed the energy of dreams in their daily lives, treating bad and good dreams almost like delicate spirits. The bad ones cast out quickly by words and spittle, the good ones gently kept in silence. Chinese literature and philosophy provide a window into how dreams were viewed beyond mere omens. One of the most famous anecdotes comes from the Taoist philosopher Zhuangzi, Chuang-Tzu, who lived in the 4th century BC. As the story goes, Zhuangzi once dreamed he was a butterfly, flitting about carelessly, completely unaware of Zhuangzi the man. When he awoke, he found himself to be Zhuangzi again, but he was left with a bemused smile. Was he Zhuangzi who had dreamt of being a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming he was Zhuangzi? This gentle parable captures the Chinese fascination with the boundary between dream and reality. It suggests, without any alarm, that what we call reality might be just another layer of dream from a higher perspective. The tale has been told for ages, not to provoke existential dread, but to encourage a relaxed openness to mystery. It invites the listener at night to wonder quietly about the nature of existence, much like the Indian sages did, but in a playful, poetic fashion. Chinese manuals for dream interpretation were compiled to guide both the elite and ordinary folks. The most renowned is attributed to the Duke of Zhou, an ancient sage and regent famed for wisdom, and is called Zhou Gong Jiemeng, meaning Duke of Zhou's dream interpretation. Though its true authorship is lost to legend, by the Han Dynasty this dream dictionary had become a household reference. Imagine a scholar in a Han-era town unrolling a bamboo scroll of the Zhougong dream listings. By the light of a wax candle, he looks up a symbol that a neighbor dreamed. For example, perhaps the neighbor dreamed of his teeth falling out. The scroll's entry, written in concise characters, says that means a loss in the family may occur. With a sympathetic expression, the scholar advises his neighbor to quietly check on his elder's health and be prepared, but also reminds him that not every such dream comes to pass literally. Sometimes a falling tooth can signify a more metaphorical loss, like moving away from home. Another entry describes that dreaming of a cat catching a mouse is a good sign indicating an end to one's troubles, since the household pest is caught. But dreaming of a cat loudly meowing could warn of gossip or petty theft. The sheer variety of entries in Zhougong's dictionary is astounding, from celestial objects to household utensils. If you dream of clear, bright skies full of stars, it augurs recognition and success. If you dream of a solar or lunar eclipse, it warns of ill influences affecting the authorities or family patriarch. Dreaming of lush, blooming peach trees suggests good health and long life, peaches symbolizing immortality, whereas dreaming of your house collapsing might mean a major change in the family, possibly even the death of a parent, since the house represents the family's foundation. Because these interpretations were widely shared and later printed in almanacs, they became part of cultural tradition. Even those unschooled might learn from elders that, say, dreaming of snakes could mean someone in the household will become pregnant, snakes and dragons being linked to fertility and new life in Chinese symbolism. It is notable that Chinese dream interpretation made room for many types of dreams. Scholars identified some dreams as mere reflections of daily life and emotions, not meaningful omens at all. They called these emotion dreams or mind dreams Jingmeng or Xiangmeng, essentially dreams that replay one's worries, desires, or memories. For example, a student burning the midnight oil studying might dream of falling asleep in class or of failing an exam, a straightforward reflection of his daytime anxiety. These, the Chinese would say, need no celestial interpretation. They are understood as the mind's mirror. Another category, the stimulus dream, yin meng, accounted for those times external factors sneak into our sleep, like when a person sleeps in a cold room and dreams of snow, or hears a distant bell that becomes part of a dream narrative. Recognizing these natural causes helped prevent overreaction to every odd scenario the brain concocted. But beyond these mundane dreams were the ones of greater interest, the dreams that truly meant something. Some were direct, predictive dreams, Zhimeng, that clearly foreshadowed an event, for instance, a general dreaming of victory before a battle, which then bolstered his courage in the fight. Others were symbolic dreams that required interpretation, the kind Zhougong's compendium helped with. Still others were visitation dreams, Jimeng, in which a deity, Buddha, or ancestor appeared to deliver a specific message or warning. These were treated with great reverence. If a departed grandfather came in a dream telling his family to perform a certain ritual or find something he had hidden, the family would earnestly do so as soon as possible, believing the boundary between worlds had opened briefly to allow this communication. The Chinese also valued telepathic dreams, sometimes also called Ji-Meng, an overlapping term. These were dreams where a loved one far away might appear to you only for you to discover later that at that very night they were in trouble or intensely thinking of you. Such dreams reinforced the idea of a subtle connection between hearts across distances. One old tale tells of a mother who woke from a nightmare of her son struggling in a storm at sea. She grew anxious and prayed fervently for him. Weeks later, a letter arrived from the son saying his ship was nearly lost in a sudden tempest on the very night she had that dream. Coincidence or not, accounts like this strengthened people's faith in the mysterious links forged by dreaming. Returning to our palace scene in China, the Zhou king thanks his interpreters for clarifying the omen of his lightning-struck pine tree dream. He may still order certain precautions, perhaps a ceremony to honor the thunder god, so that the coming storm might pass gently. But he will sleep more soundly, knowing the dream ultimately promises renewal rather than ruin. We leave the palace and drift over the countryside. Perhaps we see an older man in a quiet village writing in his journal by candlelight, recording his dreams and what he thinks they mean. Personal dream journals were not unheard of among literate Chinese who practiced Confucian self-cultivation. Reflecting on dreams was part of understanding oneself. This man writes that he dreamed of crossing a clear river, and feeling refreshed, he interprets it as his spirit cleansing itself of past troubles, a personal renewal. He notes another recent dream of receiving an old coin from a stranger. He ponders if it means good fortune will arrive unexpectedly. In the stillness, he closes his bamboo diary and extinguishes the candle, content that he has captured the whispers of his soul. In the last hours of the Chinese night, everything grows very still. The flame of the village candle flickers low, and our traveler's heart on this journey feels a serene kinship with all these dreamers across the ancient world. No matter the differences in culture, be it in Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, or China, there is a shared understanding that dreams carry a piece of the sky's wisdom or the soul's reflection. The Chinese word for nightmare is meng, literally a terrible dream, but they also speak of mei meng, a beautiful dream. Both terrible and beautiful dreams were recognized as threads in life's tapestry, to be greeted with humility and interpreted with care. Now, as the first faint light of dawn touches the eastern horizon of China, casting a pale glow on the bamboo groves and tiled rooftops, we gently turn our attention westward again. There is yet another realm of dreams to visit, the classical world of Greece and Rome, where different gods and philosophies held sway, but where the nights were likewise filled with symbolic stories told in sleep. We set sail, figuratively, across the seas of time and geography toward the ancient Mediterranean to see how dreams were perceived under the soft night skies of that cradle of Western civilization. Our travels now carry us to the ancient Mediterranean. The gentle sound of waves can almost be heard as we arrive at a coastal sanctuary in Greece, where a different approach to dreams unfolds. Imagine a moonlit night at the healing temple of Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine, in the city of Epidaurus. Dozens of weary pilgrims have come from afar, seeking cures for their ailments. Now they lie quietly in the abaton, a long dormitory open to the night air, where the only light is the silvery glow of the moon and a few oil lamps flickering on the columns. The marble floor beneath them still holds a trace of the day's warmth, and a soft breeze brings the scent of nearby pines and wildflowers. Among the sleepers is a fisherman who has lost the strength in his right hand. He prays softly to Asclepius and finally drifts into sleep on his simple straw mat. In the deep of night, the fisherman dreams. In his dream, a majestic figure appears, a kindly old man accompanied by a serpent, for the snake is sacred to Asclepius. The figure touches the fisherman's ailing hand and wraps it gently with a warm bandage. Then, in the dream, the man says in a reassuring voice, "You are healed." The fisherman awakes just before dawn, the stars still bright overhead. He sits up and realizes that his hand, numb and weak for months, now moves with ease and without pain. Tears of gratitude fill his eyes as the first light of the sun peeks over distant olive groves. He believes wholeheartedly that the god visited him in sleep and granted a miracle. He will later offer thanks by sacrificing a rooster at the temple, a traditional thank offering to Asclepius, and carve a small votive tablet recounting his cure to leave at the sanctuary. Many others left similar tales of healing. One inscription tells of a woman who had been pregnant for 3 years without giving birth. She slept in the temple and dreamed that the god's great snake coiled around her body. In her dream, the serpent's touch caused her to finally give birth. She awoke and that very day delivered a healthy child, to her immense relief and joy. Another tablet records a man who had been paralyzed in his legs. As he slept in the holy portico, he dreamed Asclepius appeared and urged him to stand. In the dream, he rose and walked. Upon waking, he found strength had returned to his limbs. He walked out of the temple on his own, a living testament to the power of a dream. Each of these accounts was carefully carved into stone and displayed for pilgrims, a gentle encouragement to believe, to trust that in the quiet mystery of sleep, the gods might bring aid when hope was fading. This scenario is drawn from many records that the Greeks left inscribed at healing temples, stories of dream cures and divine guidance given during sleep. The practice was known as incubation, literally the ritual of sleeping in a sacred place to invite a divinely inspired dream. It was a structured way of interpreting dreams. The meaning was often straightforward. If Asclepius or his sacred snakes appeared and ministered to you in the dream, you would awaken cured. If nothing happened, one might try again another night or seek another remedy. The atmosphere at these temples was kept tranquil and hopeful, an integral part of the healing process. Patients would fast and bathe beforehand, perhaps take soothing herbs, and the environment itself, calm, hallowed, safe, likely encouraged comforting dreams. Even today, reading these ancient cure stories, one is struck by the gentle humanity in them. An anxious, suffering person enters, sleeps with faith in the dark, and experiences a dream of reassurance that often leads to real improvement by morning. Outside the sanctuaries, dreams were woven into everyday Greek life as well. The Greeks had a rich mythology around dreams. They personified them as the oneiroi, winged spirits that flew out each night from a cavern in the far west, carrying dream images from the gods to mortals. Among these dream spirits was Morpheus, who could take human shape within dreams and whose very name means maker of forms. It was he, the Greeks said, who most gently crafted and delivered the dreams of kings and heroes, ensuring they saw what they needed to see. According to myth, some oneiroi brought true messages, and some brought false or puzzling ones. In Homer's epic The Odyssey, the wise Queen Penelope speaks of two gates of dreams, one of polished horn and one of ivory. True dreams, she says, come through the gate of horn, since horn is translucent, allowing truth to pass, whereas deceptive dreams slip out of the gate of ivory, ivory being opaque, thus representing illusion. The ivory gate, she notes, lets through only deceptive illusions, beautiful but false, whereas the gate of polished horn allows truthful visions to pierce through. But without a god to declare which gate a dream has passed through, mortals can only ponder and be cautious. We can picture a Greek family in a modest home, perhaps in Athens. A small terracotta lamp on the hearth flickers gently, illuminating the worried face of a young man as he tells his grandmother in the morning that he dreamed of their old olive tree splitting in half. The grandmother, steeped in folk wisdom, furrows her brow and interprets quietly. The olive tree is the family's prosperity and unity. To see it split could mean a quarrel or division is looming among relatives. She urges everyone to be cautious with their tempers and to make a small offering to the household gods for harmony. The family, taking the dream as a warning, heeds her advice. If strife does indeed come, they will feel prepared and not caught unaware. And if it doesn't, they will credit the dream for reminding them to stay united. Greek literature is full of dreams that delivered messages or warnings. In Homer's Iliad, Zeus sends King Agamemnon a misleading dream promising victory if he attacks the Trojans immediately. That false dream, sent by Zeus to further his own hidden plan, nearly leads the Greek army to disaster. The inclusion of such an episode taught listeners that sometimes the gods might test or deceive through dreams, requiring mortals to remain prudent and not leap blindly, even when a dream seems favorable. In contrast, other dreams in Greek stories prove invaluable. In Herodotus's histories, we hear of the Persian king Xerxes, who initially decided against invading Greece until a vivid dream figure appeared, threatening him with ruin if he did not proceed. Shaken, Xerxes eventually did launch his invasion, arguably fulfilling the dream's ominous purpose by sealing his own overconfident fate. And in Aeschylus's tragic play, The Persians, the Queen of Persia, Xerxes' mother, has a nightmare of her son's failure in war, symbolized by a chariot crashing and its rider crushed. Her dream's prophecy comes true with Xerxes' defeat at the Battle of Salamis. These tales, recounted in measured, somber tones by poets, reinforced a respect for dreams as bearers of fate's decrees. And in the generations that followed, other leaders also heeded dreams. Alexander the Great, it is said, had a puzzling dream of a dancing satyr while he besieged the Phoenician city of Tyre. His seers cleverly interpreted the dream as a wordplay, dividing the Greek word for satyr, satyrus, into satyrus, Tyre is yours, which encouraged Alexander to push on. He redoubled his efforts and eventually captured that impregnable city. On another campaign, when Alexander contemplated a risky river crossing in India, a dream of the wine god Dionysus allegedly warned him to wait. He delayed, and soon a flash flood swept through the river valley had he proceeded the night before. As planned, disaster might have struck his army. Stories like these were told to show that even the mightiest conquerors listened for guidance in their sleep, believing that a friendly deity or the whisper of fate might aid them where human effort alone was not enough. Greek philosophers, too, entered the conversation on dreams. The quiet voice of reason mingled with the mystical. Aristotle, writing in the 4th century BC, proposed that many dreams are not divine messages, but rather the result of natural processes. He observed that if someone goes to bed thirsty, they might dream of cool water and drinking deeply, a simple reflection of a physical need. Or if thunder rumbles in the distance, the sleeper may dream of a war in the heavens. Aristotle suggested that dreams often arise from our senses and internal bodily states. Yet he did not dismiss them entirely. He, intriguingly, noted that some dreams can foreshadow illness before any symptoms appear. For example, dreaming of something burning might precede a fever, as the body subtly knows it's getting sick. Even earlier, the physician Hippocrates had advised healers to pay attention to a patient's dreams, believing they mirrored the body's internal state. He noted that a person with an excess of heat or bile might frequently dream of fire or scorching winds, whereas someone with too much phlegm, a cold, moist humor, might dream of swimming in water or being caught in the rain. By observing these patterns, ancient doctors tried to diagnose imbalances in the body. A recurring dream of choking or breathlessness, for example, might alert the healer to incipient lung trouble in a patient. In this way, dream interpretation in Greece was not only a religious or mystical pursuit, but also a practical diagnostic tool in the art of medicine. In the Hellenistic period and into Roman times, professional dream interpreters, oneirokritae, offered their services in big cities like Alexandria and Rome. One famous figure was Artemidorus of Daldis, who lived in the 2nd century A.D. He traveled widely, collecting reports of people's dreams and what subsequently happened, and compiled a grand treatise called the Oneirokritika, or Interpretation of Dreams. Artemidorus's work, delivered in a clear, methodical style, acknowledged what many before him had known. The meaning of a dream can depend greatly on the dreamer's circumstances. He taught that a symbol in a dream, say a snake, might mean one thing for a physician, perhaps representing healing or knowledge, since snakes twine the staff of Asclepius, and another for a farmer, perhaps a threat to his crops or a hidden danger in the field. Artemidorus stressed the need to gather context. The dreamer's occupation, social status, and the current events of their life. In doing so, he took a step toward a more personalized understanding of dreams. Still, his books contained thousands of traditional interpretations for reference. People across the Roman Empire consulted such manuals or visited local interpreters for guidance, showing that a practice begun in dim prehistory continued unbroken into the age of emperors. The Romans inherited much of the Greek wisdom about dreams. They had their own protective gods of sleep, like Somnus, and the idea of dream messengers like Mercury, Hermes, who in myth often carried messages from Zeus into the minds of sleeping mortals. Roman historians recorded that on the night before the assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BC, Caesar's wife Calpurnia dreamed of his statue spurting blood and of her husband lying dead in her arms. She woke in terror and begged Caesar not to go to the Senate meeting that day. So powerful was the weight of this ominous dream that Caesar initially agreed and decided to remain home. But colleagues eventually persuaded him to disregard the dream as mere superstition. Tragically, he went out and was assassinated in the Senate House that very day. The story, passed down through generations, serves as a solemn Roman lesson. Woe to the one who ignores the warnings of the gods delivered in sleep. Calpurnia's dream was later understood as a clear prophecy of what occurred. It added to the lore of Rome the notion that the divine powers did not leave mortals unwarned. It was mortals who failed to listen. Not only the mighty, but ordinary Romans quietly consulted their dreams. A humble farmer might recount that he dreamed of a fierce storm flattening his wheat fields. Taking heed, he could reinforce his barn and harvest a bit early, just in case. If the predicted storm arrived, he would thank Jupiter or Mercury for the advance notice. If not, he still slept better for having taken precautions. In Roman culture, such personal oniromancy, dream divination, was part of everyday wisdom. Much like checking the evening sky for clouds, people checked the landscape of their dreams for hints of what tomorrow might bring. There are happier tales, too. The Romans often used dreams to validate a course of action or to bolster political authority. Suetonius, a Roman biographer, tells that on the eve before the future Emperor Augustus entered Rome as a young man, he dreamed of the god Jupiter. In the dream, Jupiter appeared in the guise of Augustus's father and gave the young man a thunderbolt symbol of supreme power, which then blazed so brightly it illuminated the world. Augustus's interpreters took this as an auspicious sign that he was destined for greatness. Indeed, he would go on to become the first emperor of Rome and rule for decades in relative peace. Whether the dream truly happened or was a tale Augustus later promoted, it reveals how deeply even pragmatic Romans valued the endorsement of a dream. Emperors frequently consulted their own dreams, or those of trusted advisors, regarding matters of state, battles, and laws. Constantine, in the 4th century A.D., famously had a vision or dream of a blazing Christian symbol, the Chi-Rho, before a crucial battle. He credited it for his victory and his ensuing conversion to the new faith. It was one more example of how, at the very hinge of history, a dream or vision could alter the course of events. And even as Christianity spread, dreams remained a vital channel of guidance. The New Testament relates that a divine angel appeared in the dreams of Joseph, the husband of Mary, to warn him to flee with the infant Jesus from King Herod's wrath. That dream prompted Joseph to whisk his family away to safety in Egypt, saving the child's life. Later, Joseph was guided by another dream telling him when it was safe to return home. These accounts reinforced that, in the Christian worldview too, important messages could come through dreams, just as they had in ancient pagan traditions. By late antiquity, Roman and Greek thinkers attempted to categorize dreams much like the Chinese did. Ziyampai, philosopher Cicero wondered aloud whether any dreams were truly trustworthy or if people simply remembered the hits and forgot the misses. A later Roman writer, Macrobius, 4th century A.D., outlined 5 types of dreams. The somnium, a symbolic dream needing interpretation like a riddle from the gods. The visio, a straightforward prophetic vision that later comes true. The oraculum, a dream in which a figure, often a deity or revered spirit, directly speaks truth or prophecy. The insomnium, a regular dream stemming from the day's events or the dreamer's emotional state without deeper significance. And the phantasma or visum, a nightmare or apparition that frightens, often as one is just falling asleep or waking, essentially an illusion of the mind. This was an intellectual's attempt to bring order to the many-faced nature of dreams. It echoes what we have seen across all these cultures. People everywhere recognize that dreams range from the mundane to the divine. Macrobius's calm analysis assured readers that not every dream was a message from Jupiter. Many are simply echoes of our mortal worries. Yet he, too, affirmed that some dreams, the visio and oraculum, were truly believed to carry the voices of the gods or glimpses of fate. One Roman writer, Cicero, again even used a dream as a vessel for philosophy. In his imagined tale, The Dream of Scipio, a general named Scipio Aemilianus falls asleep and dreams he is lifted up among the stars to meet the spirit of his grandfather, the famed conqueror Scipio Africanus. From that celestial height, looking down on the earth as a tiny sphere far below, the elder Scipio imparts wisdom to his grandson. He shows him how small the fame and conflicts of mortals appear from the vantage of eternity, and how the soul will outlive the body and dwell among the stars if one lives a just and virtuous life. Scipio Aemilianus awakens from this cosmic dream profoundly moved, with a serene perspective on his duties and destiny. Through this gentle allegory, the ancients demonstrated that the dream state could be more than a tool for divination or healing. It could also be a poetic space for moral and spiritual insight. A dream could be a teacher, expanding one's mind in ways daylight never could. Having walked through the marble halls of Greek temples and the villas of Rome, we notice that whether in East or West, in the age of pyramids or the age of philosophers, the ancients shared a common desire: to glean meaning from the mysterious visions that arise in sleep. In these tales, the language of dreams revealed itself in vivid symbols: a star falling from the heavens into the cradle of a king's life, a mighty sphinx whispering a promise in the ear of a sleeping prince, a radiant white elephant carrying a lotus to an expectant mother, a chorus of snakes curing the sick under temple porticos, an ivory gate and a gate of horn sending false and true visions, a humble carpenter warned by an angel at night. Such images, some wondrous, some eerie, were the alphabet of the ancient dream world. Each culture learned to read that alphabet in its own way, yet all recognized that these nocturnal symbols held power. Throughout our journey, certain common threads quietly emerged. In every culture, people learned to separate the ordinary dreams from the significant ones. They understood that some dreams were simply the echoes of the day, while others might carry messages from beyond the ordinary. They all developed ways to nurture the good visions and guard against the bad, whether by whispering a nightmare to the dawn, invoking a friendly household spirit for protection, or consulting a wise interpreter. Always the approach was patient and humble. A dream was never dismissed lightly. To the ancients, receiving a dream, even a frightening one, meant the universe was speaking to them rather than ignoring them. To be forewarned by a nightmare was to be given a chance to appease or prepare. To be blessed by a sweet dream was to receive encouragement and grace. Not every dream was benign. Many times a dream brought news of sorrow or danger. Yet even such dire warnings were considered gifts of a kind, a glimpse of what might come, and an opportunity, however small, to attempt to change or at least face fate. A king forewarned of flood could build higher walls. A mother whose dream hinted at illness might pray more fervently to her gods. The ancients took solace in the idea that the divine would not leave them blind to approaching misfortune. To receive a warning in a dream was proof that one was being watched over, that perhaps destiny was not unalterable. This belief gave courage. One could act, appease, or adapt, armed with knowledge gleaned from a vision. And as much as people feared nightmares, they equally cherished uplifting dreams. A weary traveler could dream of a bright oasis and wake with new hope of finding water the next day. A young queen might dream of a gentle dove alighting on her hand and take it as a sign that her reign would be blessed with peace. Such gentle dreams were like nighttime blessings, often quietly celebrated. They bolstered hearts and gave people something to smile about under the day's broad sky. In those instances, a dream was not only a message, but a warm embrace from the divine, an assurance that amid life's uncertainties, goodness was still to come. Indeed, the reverence for dreams was shared by cultures far beyond the Mediterranean or the Near East. Indigenous peoples across the world have long treated dreams as sacred portals to the spirit realm. The Aboriginal Australians speak of the dream time, a mythic era of creation, and an ongoing spiritual reality that one can touch in dreams and trance. A person in such a culture might view their dreams as journeys into that timeless sacred realm, connecting with ancestor spirits and the land itself. In the Americas, many native peoples look to dreams for guidance. A youth might go alone into the wilderness on a vision quest, fasting and praying for a powerful dream of a guardian spirit, perhaps an eagle or a wolf, whose appearance would bestow courage, insight, or a new name and purpose. In Mesoamerican lore, for instance, roughly 10 years before the Spanish conquest of Mexico, the Aztec Emperor Moctezuma was said to be plagued by a series of dreadful dreams and omens. In one, he beheld his capital city Tenochtitlan, inundated by great waves. In another, he saw the temple of the war god collapse into ruins. The royal dream priests interpreted these visions as warnings of upheaval and misfortune to come. Moctezuma, deeply unsettled, ordered continuous rituals and sacrifices to appease the gods. Yet, despite all efforts, within a decade, foreigners from across the sea arrived, bringing about the end of the empire, just as the emperor's dreams had seemingly foretold. Such accounts, whether mythologized or true, illustrate that across the ocean, in a world unknown to the ancients of Eurasia, dreams too were viewed as portents that could shape the fate of kingdoms. Likewise, in the far north of Europe, the Norse sagas and Celtic legends brim with meaningful dreams. Viking warriors heeded ominous dream warnings of battle defeat, and Celtic chieftains told of dreaming a great tree in full bloom, a herald of peace and prosperity for the tribe. No corner of the world was untouched by the sense that in sleep, hidden truths might reveal themselves. Though separated by vast continents and different gods, people everywhere invested faith in the messages of dreams. We might even imagine how those ancient interpreters would view our own dreams in the present day. If a wise one from Babylon or Thebes or Athens could watch us sleep now, what might they say of our visions? Perhaps they would smile and offer interpretations drawn from their lore. A dream of flying above city lights, they might say, is the soul yearning for freedom. A dream of being lost in a vast office building could be our mind wrestling with modern anxieties. Of course, we have new symbols now. No one in Sumer dreamt of automobiles or smartphones, yet the emotions in our dreams are timeless. Fear is fear. Love is love. Victory and loss in dreams feel as powerful now as then. In that sense, whenever we awaken from a dream and ponder it, we are participating in the same gentle art that captivated the ancients. We too seek patterns in the nocturnal stories our brains create. We too feel a quiet awe when a dream seems to illuminate something about our life. In continuing to wonder about our dreams, we carry on a conversation that humanity has been engaged in since the very first dawn. We might not consult an oracle at a temple, but we sometimes do reach for a modern dream dictionary or share a puzzling dream with a friend searching for insight, just as the ancients did. In doing so, we honor their legacy. The enduring belief that our dreams matter, that they reflect part of our story and perhaps even whisper about our future. Having journeyed far and wide through Mesopotamian ziggurats and Egyptian tombs, Indian forests and Chinese courts, Greek sanctuaries and Roman basilicas, all in search of how the ancients interpreted dreams, we come to recognize the kinship that links us to them. Take a moment to absorb the kinship we share with those long-ago dreamers. Thousands of years have passed. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen. Languages have changed, yet even now. We close our eyes and wander in dreams not so different from theirs. We might not call upon a temple priest at dawn, but perhaps we still wake sometimes with a vivid dream on our lips and wonder what it meant. In remembering the ancients, we see that our questions are old ones. Are our dreams trying to tell us something? Do they mirror our soul? Are they visits from beyond or echoes of our daily life? The ancients answered in many voices. Yes, sometimes, and listen, for the gods may be speaking, and also do not fear, learn from the dream, and let it guide you gently. And now the long narrative comes to a rest, like a ship gliding into a calm harbor at midnight. The air around us is still and quiet. Think of those ancient interpreters after their work was done, perhaps gazing up at the same moon we see now, thankful for the guidance they believed was sent to them. Think of a traveler in a desert, smiling at a reassuring dream of an oasis, or a scholar in a distant time, closing his dream journal with a contented sigh. We are connected to them by the universal experience of dreaming. You are safe in this darkness, just as they were in theirs. The night enfolds you gently. The quiet that filled ancient bedrooms now fills yours a timeless hush where all burdens are set down. Nothing more is needed of you tonight. Like those dreamers of old, you can surrender to the flowing current of sleep, trusting that you are watched over, trusting that the dawn will come in its time. Perhaps we too can drift into our dreams with a sense of trust, with a quiet faith that even if our dreams seem strange or random, they are a natural part of us, the same deep well of imagination and insight that nourished our ancestors under these same stars. In your mind's eye, perhaps you see one last image, an ancient city at midnight. One by one, oil lamps are snuffed out behind mud brick walls as the inhabitants drift into slumber. In the winding lanes, a stray dog curls up in a doorway, and the red glow of the last hearth embers fades to darkness. Before long, every window is dark, and every street silent, the entire city given over to the realm of sleep. The same stars that shine above you now look down upon those sleeping souls thousands of years ago. In that shared starlight across the ages, we and they are not so different, all seekers of meaning in the silent language of dreams. Perhaps at this very moment, a gentle night breeze brushes against your window, or a distant car hums in the darkness, small reminders that the night is alive and that you are part of this great slumbering world. In this shared silence, there is comfort. In this universal dreamland, we are never alone. We dream alongside all who have ever dreamed across all times. The time has come to join them in that gentle voyage. The night invites you to your own dreams now, and the stars linger a while to watch over you as they always have. Good night.